Hi, I'm Danielle Todd, and you're listening to None of Us Are Normal. You can't see me right now because this is a podcast, but if you could, you'd see me putting emphatic air quotes around the word normal. Honestly, what does it mean to be normal anyway? Who decides what is or isn't normal for each of us, and why do we all so desperately want to be normal? If you don't know me yet, I'm a Canadian country artist living in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm a wife, a frequenter of my sunroom, a dog mom of two, and as of recently, a podcast host. In my experience as all of these things, I've decided that none of us are normal and that normal is something completely made up that puts limitations around our feelings and experiences. But here's something that's not made up. We all struggle. We all experience sadness sometimes, whether momentary or all-encompassing. We all deserve joy in our lives. No, none of us are air quotes normal, but we're all very, very real. Join me in real conversations with real people who I know and love to discuss mental health, music, and what it means to make the most out of life. These conversations will be equal parts tough and fun. As in anything in life, there are two sides to every coin. I'm happy that you're here, and I hope you enjoy this episode of None of Us Are Normal. This podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. It is in no way medical advice. For 24/7 free and confidential support, referral, and treatment options and guidance, please call the National Suicide and Crisis Prevention Hotline at 988. If this is an emergency and you are in an immediate danger to yourself or others, please push pause on this episode and immediately call 911. Hey friends, today I am so excited that my cousin Robbie is going to be joining us on the podcast. Robbie is such an influence on my life, and he is so incredibly talented in so many different areas. We're going to be talking about how he lives his life to the best of his ability. Honestly, he is such a cool person. He always follows his dreams and follows his wants and makes things happen. And I think it's really important for our mental health to just follow our heart. And so I'm really excited to chat with Robbie today. Not only is he a massage therapist, he used to be a blacksmith as well as a juggler. He's into cheerleading at one point. We are going to be talking about all the things that he's done in life. And I just can't wait for you guys to hear it. So let's get to it. All right. I am here with my cousin, Robbie. Robbie, I'm so excited to have you here today. Why don't we just start off the bat and have you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and all the cool things that you've done?
Well, actually, I wasn't too sure why I was going to be the first guest on here until I saw the intro that it was called None of Us Are Normal. I was like, oh, okay, that's why she's asking me to be part of this. But my background was like I went to university, did all like the history and philosophy stuff. And before that, I was a welder building cars. And after university, I worked for a water education council for Ontario. And I was part of a think tank for a little while doing like Canadian macroeconomic problems. And then my main career, I got involved with museums. So Waterloo Region Museum. And I did that for almost 10 years. And that was a lot of helping to design and teach museum interpreters about different historical narratives. And then they teach them to the public. And then at the very end, then I switched over and became a massage therapist.
Like what? Curveball.
Yeah.
That is actually the reason why I wanted to have you here today, because I just admire everything that you do. One of the things that I really admire about you is that when you're just wanting something new, you never stay stuck. You're always moving. You're always just like liquid and going wherever you want to go and doing whatever you want to do. And I feel like you just drive down the road and you think, I want to go this place, like I want to go to Thailand. And then the next month you're just there. And so can you talk to us a little bit about how you make that happen and how it's just good for your health and your mental health?
Mhm. Well, yeah, like probably like the first time you make a major change in your life is probably the hardest. And then the second time you do it, it's a little bit less hard. And then the third time you do it, it's even easier, right? It kind of gets a little bit dangerous
Yeah.
towards the end, and then it's just easy to swing over from one thing to the other, right? But the other part that I do is if I've got something that I want to do, let's say it was my blacksmithing business, I want to do that on the side first. So I start out as a hobby, build it up slowly, and doing it while doing like a full time job, and then until it begins to take off, and then you can kind of switch over. And then the other part is if you want to really like just switch things and become a massage therapist or something like that, then you got to save up some money. You got to have some money in a bank account that's going to cushion you while you're doing it.
One of the things that I love about you, I think I'm going to say that a million times. But one thing that I think is so cool is that you have so many different interests. And this might be a strange question, but how do you find these interests? Like, how do you know what to look for? Because I find that there's a lot of people out there that don't, say I don't have a hobby, or I just hang out at home and Netflix is my interest. How do you find these wild things to do all the time? Because you went from, first of all, you were a blacksmith, which was super cool in, what was it, 1914 museum for a very long
Yeah.
time. And that was cool. And then you followed that all the way to Germany, and you learned a lot in Germany over there with a professor, with blacksmithing. And then all of a sudden you just want to do massage therapy and Muay Thai.
Yeah. Yeah, all those things. Yeah. Well, like with the blacksmithing, what it was since I was working for all the different museums and doing all that work, there was a lot of different responsibilities that I had. So some of it was designing or helping to study for and design different narratives for all kinds of different museum stuff, historical stuff, right? And then also because I had the trades background, they had me teaching all of the historical trades. So whether it be stoneworking, leather work, or blacksmithing or woodwork, etc. Right? And but I really enjoyed the blacksmithing, especially, and that's why I wanted to like jump down that road. And they didn't necessarily need me as much per se in the winter, so I applied for an educational leave since it was a government job. You have that option, right? And then they granted it. And what I did was I wanted to go learn from a master blacksmith in Europe somewhere. And so I just spammed the world of master blacksmiths to get someone who was willing to take me on to help them build their projects, since I already had a background in the technical skills and welding. And then in return, they teach me how to do like design and the special ways that they do blacksmithing. And the sweet bonus was that I got a free place to sleep and eat as well. So yeah.
Was it scary to just kind of go to Germany? And like, had you done a big trip like that before? Was it scary to just sort of dive in on your own? Because was it just a program with you and the professor? It was one-on-one?
It was one-on-one, yeah, because going to university or school in Europe is extremely expensive. And you have to share the class with like 20, 30 other people. So why not get one-on-one training for free and get your food and a place to stay for free, right? So,
That's so cool.
yeah, that's why I decided to go about it that way and exchange my labor. Now, like, was it scary to do it? Absolutely. It was my first long-term thing on my own, away from like all my friends and family and stuff like that. So yeah, it was very, very lonely. It was like, that was probably the loneliest time of my life, was going on that trip. Interspersed with periods of like intense connection with like people that I would meet, and all, etc. Right. But then I did it again. And instead of going to Germany, I went to like England and such. And every time I did an adventure like this around the world, it got easier, and it was easier to be alone and stuff like that. And meeting people was easier and easier. So it's something you throw yourself into, and each time it gets easier.
I like how you just kind of dive into things, even though they're scary, because
Mhm.
I feel like that's one of the reasons why I wanted you on here. It's just, you always seem to just go after what you want. And I think that's really cool. When we were backstage, you were talking about meditation versus physical activity. And you said physical activity is kind of what really helps you through, times when you're not feeling great. Do you do meditation as well now, or was it always kind of just physical activity?
I do meditation when I need to do meditation. So like if I'm in like a healthy state in my life and stuff like that, I don't need to do meditation and it's fine. But I never used to do meditation until I had PTSD, and I never had like depression or anxiety before that either. So like I was um, probably a pretty productive individual, right? Up until I had PTSD. And then I had something to struggle with. And I was hearing from everyone, you know, like meditate, meditate, meditate. That'll help you get through all the flashbacks and stuff like that. But as it turned out for me, meditation actually made them worse, right? And it was not able to get me through any stuff like that. What did help me through it was doing something physical that was like extremely strenuous until like you have nothing left. And at that point, lo and behold, you can meditate. And so I'd do that, and then I you know, try and do it longer and longer, and you know, I'd go from like 2 minutes to 5 minutes to 10 minutes to eventually got it up to like 3 hours, and then I was like, okay, you know, maybe I'm getting through this whole like PTSD thing. So
And so you still just do meditation kind of when you need it, or do you think that it kind of adds to your everyday sort of schedule?
yeah, it's when I need it. It's definitely when I need it. What I prefer to do now is kickboxing, but then again, I've kind of off and on always done kickboxing through my
What
life.
haven't you done?
Yeah, it's in a sense kind of meditative, right? Because you got to be really, really concentrated while you're doing it. So anything you can do where you have to be, you're forced to be concentrated, that's automatic meditation.
Cool. So how I want to jump into traveling because I think that that is so cool. I love to travel. So how has traveling kind of shaped your life? And what would you say for people who are just kind of like freaked out to make that first jump? Because you know, you said that it was really hard and it gets easier. I know you said
Mhm.
that. Are there any kind of tips or anything like that in terms of do you make a plan or do you just jump in? Because I feel like when I think of you, I feel like you're just like, let's do it. And you just do it.
I'm not too much of a planner. That's very, very true. Like so when I did my cross Europe tours and stuff like that, and going to like Thailand and places like that, I've never planned anything ahead of time. So I just arrive, I take the hostels where they are, and what I usually do is like say if I'm in Europe, often like those walking tours are always happening. So they like pick you up at the or they run by the hostels, and then away you go, and then you meet people when you're doing those walking tours, and then you know who you want to hang out with while you're doing it, and then you've got a friend base wherever you go. And so I found that the best way to do solo travel. Yeah, that was definitely the best way. Now I'm speaking as a white male who speaks English and is from Canada, so I probably have it pretty easy when traveling because people, well, everyone likes people from Canada, and etc. Right? You feel safe if you're a man,
Right.
right? Traveling and stuff like
Right.
that. So yeah, I had some of those benefits, but yeah, I'd recommend even to like a woman like meet some people while you're traveling, so you have people with you.
Right. Yeah. Because I just remember, I don't even know why, but I called you when you were in Thailand and we were just chatting on the phone. And I was like, oh man, I really wish that I could go. And you said, why don't you come? And I was like, oh, why don't I? That would be so great. And so I felt a lot better traveling because you were there and you kind of like knew the ropes. But yeah, I do remember when we were traveling through, there's so many other people that are traveling through at the same time.
Mhm.
And we ran into so many people along the way, even just when you go to those tourist spots or we're checking out, different sightseeing places. Um, there's always other travelers there. And it was
Mhm.
that I felt like we met so many people just by being there. You just meet so many people. It's kind of cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everyone's in the same boat as you are, right? Because everyone's traveling. And even if they're with like one or two people, that's not enough people to be social with for like 2, 3 weeks. So everyone's looking to meet other people.
I love traveling. I'm so excited for you. Do you have any plans to go anywhere else?
Anywhere else right now? Perhaps Thailand again in January.
So you've gone through a lot of big shifts in your life and a lot of changes. Like we talked about changing from blacksmithing over to massage therapy and living situations. You moved to Germany and now you moved from Ontario to Alberta. When did you start to put your mental health first before anything else? I know that you said that for the most part, regular down days or whatever, but you didn't struggle with anything until your PTSD. Is that kind of when it shifted and you started to realize that you really needed to put your mental health first?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it became the main focus of my life. And then also, like, even I probably the part of my psyche that is just like, oh, do the thing that you want to do probably got even more accentuated because it's like, wow, everything feels terrible. I might as well just do what I want because why not?
Right.
So,
Yeah, because why not?
yeah,
If you're already feeling bad, you might as well just do whatever makes you happy. And I think that
yeah.
that's like such a good point because, you know, when people are struggling, I remember when I first moved to Nashville and I was kind of struggling. I was just kind of in this weird place where I was working so much and I wasn't eating healthy, and I wasn't on a very good schedule, and I was up late, and I was, you know, sleeping through the day because I was working so late on Broadway and stuff. And then I'd wake up and it would be, you know, nighttime. And so I would never see the sunlight. And I used to make myself little deals. I would be like, okay, I'm going to work out today. And after I work out, I'm going to get myself a smoothie. Like just little things like that. That's what made me happy. Like I just could not wait for that smoothie in the morning. I used to go to this little juice bar around the corner from the gym, and that's what really made me happy when I was kind of struggling. And I remember my friend saying to me, I was like, "Oh, it's so expensive and to get a smoothie every day." And she's like, the smoothie is worth your mental health. Like, let's just go with the smoothie and get it, you know, and do that thing that makes you happy. And so I love that. I love what you're saying about that.
Oh my God. I remember that actually. The few times that we worked out together, you took me to the smoothie place afterwards.
That's my favorite part of a workout.
Yeah. The most important part.
Yeah, you always have to reward yourself for working out because working out is a struggle. You are in super tip top shape, Robbie, but when you're not in tip top shape, it's a struggle. What about your, I don't even know what it's called, but like your gymnastic stuff. How does that fit into your life?
Oh,
What is
okay,
that
okay,
even
yeah.
called?
So I guess it's kind of like cheerleading. So you're lifting someone up over your head. You're doing hand to hands, which is like they're doing it like a hand or handstand on your hands and stuff like that. And I guess where that kind of came out from is that I would do a lot of different hobby sports that involved community. So like first it was like rock climbing, and I did that for a number of years, and I was doing it pretty often. And there was like a whole community, right? And so you get this big community of friends. And then I started doing acro yoga is what it was, because it was too much for my hands to do blacksmithing all day and then rock climbing all night. And then so I did acro yoga for a whole while, right? But then I really enjoyed the standing and lifting people over your head portion of it, which is basically cheerleading. And then so I started getting into a cheerleader community, right? So you meet a lot of friends that way. And then like circus stuff in Toronto. There's like a circus school over there. I wasn't actually doing circus, but like you can just do the fun circus like exercise classes, right? So
I was like, wait a minute. Are you part of the circus?
a little late in my life to run away with the circus, yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past you, honestly. Okay, so you are super artistic in lots of ways. You juggle, you cheerlead, you do your blacksmithing, you know, all those things. You're very artistic. Do you use art to express yourself?
Yeah. So blacksmithing was definitely like cathartic. So you can you can make something and you can beat the hell out of it at the same time, right? Because you're swinging a hammer, you got a hot piece of steel, and you smash it against an anvil, and so it's got to be that kind of like satisfying type of art where you just like splash things against a canvas. It's like that, but you're smashing it even harder, right? So that's what blacksmithing is to me, and I felt great every time I would finish all the blacksmithing for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, the blacksmithing is also pretty physical too.
Mhm.
Like I guess it would take a lot out of you, especially, and I remember visiting you at the museum, and it would be a bajillion degrees in there too. And you'd just be blacksmithing away by the fire. It's like, holy my gosh.
That was very, very hot. Yeah. And you wear the clothes from 100 years ago. So they're all like long shirts and they got collars and things like that. And it's hot, humid Ontario weather and you're smashing away at a fire.
So you do a lot of yoga and hiking and all that physical activity. How much of your day is spent doing this? And do you use it as like an escape, or do you just do it because you enjoy it?
It's kind of like this, I guess, challenging, freeing feeling whenever you're at the top of a mountain, right? So over here, I live right by the mountains. I'm in Canmore right now, and so all the mountains, they're right there around me, and it's a very challenging atmosphere. So I think I was kind of drawn to this location, and uh, so usually on like a weekend, or every second weekend, I'll be climbing up a mountain or two. But the first summer I was here, oh my god, it was I'd climb up about maybe 3 mountains a week. And for me, it was a challenge because I had torn my Achilles 2.5 years before, 2.5 years before. And so for me, it was okay, I want to be able to climb mountains. And then by the end of my first summer, I did like a 10 days, 10 summits challenge and climbed 10 mountains in 10 days. And then I was like, okay, I think my Achilles is better now. And kind of closed that chapter of my life.
So when you had that injury, that obviously would have taken away a lot of the physical sort of activity from you. How did you get through that?
Oh, that was horrible. That was horrible. Yeah.
Sorry to bring it up.
So like it was hard to walk, of course, right? So I wasn't walking for a few weeks, and then I had also an infection in the surgical wound, and so that put me out for another little while. But that was at the same time that I was making that blacksmithing project for a winery in Niagara, and so it was just me. It was only me, so I had to build it in a wheelchair. So
I remember you saying, the doctor saying that you actually healed up really quickly from that injury, because it's a pretty major injury. And I remember them saying that you healed up, and I remember hearing that you were swimming a lot. And I thought that was
yeah.
funny because I was like, of course he's swimming, because it's like you can't do anything else and you just had to find something physical to do. And I love that about you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because like I was in a wheelchair, and so you can't run or walk or do anything too interesting in a wheelchair. So I would go in the water where that takes away, a bunch of your weight. Now you can walk and run and swim and do all the things. So I was there swimming probably most often. I would usually be there twice a day.
Twice a day. That is awesome. Did you come out in better shape at the end of it? Because I feel like swimming is very challenging.
Yeah, I got really good at swimming. I was never good at swimming until then, actually.
That's so funny. Robbie, you always love a challenge. Is there anything that you can't do? Like every time that you set your mind out to do something, you always just achieve it. And I think that is so freaking awesome. And I always am excited to see. I always think to myself, like, I wonder where Robbie is today, because I have no idea. You can be anywhere in the world at any point. And I always think to myself, like, I just want to be like him. I want to be on the road and doing what I want. And whenever I have a problem, honestly, like, we're talking about mental health here. And whenever I have a problem, I think to myself, I should just call Robbie, because he always does what he wants, and he's going to find a way to make me feel better. Because even I feel like a few nights ago we chatted, and I was like stuck on just something that I wanted to do in my career, and we sat down and we chatted about it, and I left and I was like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do what I want. It's great. Okay, so you were talking about force meditation earlier with kickboxing. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Is there anything else that you do besides kickboxing that does the force meditation? I find that really interesting. I want to learn more about that.
Yeah. So yeah, like whenever like I'm in a, something that I might not feel too great, if I can do an activity that's forced meditation, it will make me feel better. So definitely kickboxing is that, especially if it's a sparring night, right? Because you have to be always paying attention completely. So whatever is happening in your life that you have been like caught up in thinking about or something like that, you physically can't think about it in that moment. So that is a great activity. So another one for me would be was definitely like the cheerleading and stuff like that. So like if someone's doing a handstand on my hands, and you're trying to balancing them up there, you can only think about that. There's no room in your mind left to think about anything else. Sometimes it was, I think when I was younger, it was juggling for me, actually. I would always be doing juggling that would require like a lot of attention. And another one that is more like traditional meditation is probably free diving. So free diving is when you just got your snorkel and you're holding your breath and you're going deep underwater to check out some corals or a fish or something like that, or you're just practicing in a lake in Ontario, right? Something like that. It's really, really great because you're holding your breath and you're looking for things, and it takes all of your attention. It's great, and the breathing up, I guess you could say, you have to do before you take the dive down. That is forced meditation as well, right? So you are floating there at the top in the water and you are breathing in. For me, it's like a box pattern, meaning there's four sides to it. So you got your in breath, that's one side. You got your holding your breath at the top of it, that's another side. Your out breath, that's a third side. And then holding it at the bottom of your breath, that's the fourth side. So it's box breathing, right? And you want to concentrate on the holds at the top and the bottom, especially at the bottom, right? And every time you hold your breath at the bottom of your breath after you've let out your whole breath, and you pause there, you will notice your heartbeat drop dramatically. And every time you do a full box breath and reach that bottom and concentrate on it even more, your heartbeat will drop even more. And before you know it, you'll get down to something like in the 40s and you'll start to feel sleepy. And that's the time in which you take a big breath in and then you dive on down. And you're going to be nice. You're going to be forced to be in this really, really relaxed state that is near sleep, but still concentrated. And that's like a forced meditation for me. And I could take that box breathing with me the rest of my life when I'm on land as well.
Wow, that is really interesting. So, how do you not pass out if you're going? Like that's incredible. I know that sounds really funny, but actually, if your heart rate is and you feel sleepy, like I would just be like, oh, let's just go to sleep then. Especially if you're floating around, like what?
That's definitely, yeah. As soon as you feel like you're about to fall asleep, that is the perfect time to dive down into the water. It's perfect, and
Oh
it'll
my
be so good.
gosh,
But yeah, like yeah, you can definitely
you are
take it too
wild.
far. You can hold your breath for too long while you're down there, right? But your body will make you come back up. So
Wow, how did you learn that?
well, I learned with like a past partner, and then like I would go on trips to different areas, and I actually took lessons when I was in Egypt over there, and they were just training me on distance, like or depth, I guess you could say. And the deepest I got was 95 feet. I was trying to get to 100, and when I came up the one time though, like my lips were completely blue and my world was starting to cave into these little circles around my eyes and stuff like that. And that was definitely the edge of the furthest that I could go at that time.
So we don't recommend that. I'm gonna have to put like a disclaimer at the end of this.
Yeah.
That's wild. And also, I didn't know that you've been to Egypt. Okay, so quick question: where have you been in the world?
Pretty well, most all around Europe, because I worked in Germany and Sweden and England, right? So while you're there, you can easily travel all around there. So that wasn't much of an issue. I went over to Egypt and Turkey, and that was an interesting trip. Definitely was there to see the water and do free diving when I was in Egypt. And then during COVID, I went to Thailand because no one else was there. Right. So, like, normally it's a very touristy area, but since no one could go and I was willing to do, because I took 3 months to do it. Right. So I was okay with 2 weeks of somewhat isolation. They would put you on an island. That was the isolation. You didn't have to stay inside of a hotel. It was like the perfect thing, right? Oh no, I'm isolated on an island, right? And then got to see all of the really cool tourist sites in Thailand when no one else was there. So there was like in Koh Phi Phi, there was this beautiful bay. It's normally filled with thousands of people. I was out there on a kayak, bringing my gear to go free diving in Shark Bay there, and no one was there. It was just me.
I do remember because we kind of went at the tail end of that, and it was still pretty slow when we were there too. It was kind of right before they opened, and it was really cool. I remember we went over to the one island where they filmed the Leonardo DiCaprio movie. I forget it right now off the top of my head, but I'm gonna have to remember it. I forget what it's called, but it's very important. And everybody else that's listening probably knows what I'm talking about. But anyways,
they're just yelling it out right now.
Yeah. That's going to drive me bonkers. But anyways, we went there and they said, oh, 6,000 people a day come here. And they actually had to close the water over there because it was starting to destroy the coral. And so if you put your toes into the water, they would just like run over and whistle into you. They had this whistle and they'd be like into your face. And so you couldn't go into the water. And but they said that 6,000 people a day were going to that beach. And when we were there, it was like not that many. I thank you for making that happen because you totally just didn't.
Very welcome.
You invited me to come over there and I mean, really, you are the one who crashed our honeymoon, but
I remember like visiting all these different areas and I had like my camera ready. I was like, oh, I got the perfect couple photo set up for you guys. Come over here. Oh, I got to take a picture of you next to this tree.
Yeah, that was so funny. It was right after we got married. And so that was so cool. I was like, Robbie got to come on our honeymoon.
But part of the honeymoon, not the whole thing, just for the audience at home. It was part of it.
So Robbie, you have been into history a lot. And I'm not going to lie, I was never super overly interested in all of the history in school. But when I talk to you about history, it is so interesting. And you love it so much, which makes me love it so much. And it's such a cool interest to have. So can you tell us a little bit about that side of your life as well?
Yeah. So I thought that I was getting away with it when I go away from it when I was going into massage therapy. You know, like, oh, I'm turning a new page of my life. I'm going to do something new. Right. But I've just kept on studying it because, you know, after 5 years of it in university, plus another 10 years working through the museums, it's just kind of become a part of who I am. Right. And with all the stuff that's happening right now too, like this is the most interesting period historically of my entire life, right? And it's going to be definitely for all of our lives, I imagine. And so I've been working on a YouTube channel to talk about it. And so I'm putting together 15 episodes, and it's going to be talking about different themes of this transition that we're going through right now. Because like there's a lot of things happening, right? There's like the Ukraine war, there's China threats with Taiwan, there's in Israel, they've taken out a bunch of top nuclear personnel in Iran. There's Iranian revolution perhaps happening right now, famines in Africa, and high inflation, interest rates, and housing crises, and all that stuff, right? And it seems like it's a whole bunch of disparate, different events, but they're actually all connected to one trend, and that's that we're moving from a globalized world to a regionalized world. Right. So the globalized world being, everyone is, you have all these countries around the world and they're all working on a product. And so you got the cheap input from this country, this one, another cheap one from that one. And then you got a cheap product in the end. But the weakness of it is that if there's an interruption there, well, now you got no product. Right. And with COVID, all the lockdowns that have happened and all the supply chain interruptions, and post COVID, we've still got, China closing down with COVID, and there's the Russian-Ukraine war. So now we don't have Russia. So we're missing a lot of inputs from around the world, and businesses and manufacturers are having to adjust to this. And the adjustment is the new regionalized world. And for us, that would look something like North America, South America, parts of Europe, Africa, and the Asia Pacific, right? So it's still a pretty large world for us, but it's just smaller than it used to be. And that transition is going to take about 5 to 10 years, which unfortunately means about like 5 to 10 years more of inflation. And But the channel is to talk about, since I'm Canadian, to talk about it from our perspective, because Canada is one of the best situated countries in the world to profit from this transition and to help the rest of the world through it. And if we don't do it right, it's just going to take longer and be more costly.
See, like you instantly just pull me in with your stories. Not stories. I mean, I guess those are all facts, but it kind of makes me remember that time we were in, I think, Kingston, Ontario, visiting my sister.
Yeah.
And we had been out the night before. And so we were kind of just having like a lazy day at home. And we were going through Netflix looking to watch something on Netflix. And you found the show, it's The Kingdom, right?
Yeah, it's like this Viking history fantasy kind of mix. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, and
I was so happy that I convinced 2 women to watch it with me.
I know. I remember being like, you told me all this stuff about the Vikings and all this history. And I was like, is there a love story? And you're like, well, yeah. And I was like, okay, I'll watch it. And then my sister came out of the shower.
She's like, love story?
To convince her. Yeah. So funny, as long as there's a love story. But no, you always make the history side of things really, really cool too. And I love that. Well, thank you, Robbie, so much for taking the time today to chat with us about your amazing, super awesome, fun life.
Thanks for having me. This is really fun.
Now it's time for your pick-me-up of the day, a quick piece of advice to help you through hard times.
Yeah, so for a pick-me-up, so like, let's say I just wake up and I'm feeling down or something like that, and I don't have it in me to go to the gym that day. All I concentrate on is, okay, well, I just got to take the blanket off. And then after that, all I have to do is put my foot on the floor. After that, I just have to open up the door to my bedroom. Then after that, I just have to get to the washroom. After I get that, then I just have to step in the shower. Then I just have to dry myself. Then I just have to put on some clothes, and, then I'm already hungry, so I'm going to want to eat anyways. So I do that. And then I just got to put on my shoes and coat and start walking down the hallway. Once I'm there, then I just have to go down the elevator. And it goes on like that until you're at the gym. And once you're at the gym, then you're just going to start moving anyways, right? Because you're already there. So you don't have to think about the workout. You don't have to get yourself going to actually do the workout. You just got to do the first step and then think about the next step.
Thank you for listening to None of Us Are Normal. Being a human is hard, and I hope hearing from other humans on my show helps you in your own experience. For additional resources or to learn more about today's guest, please visit DanielleToddMusic.com.
So make it worth every joy, worth every pain. Look for the sun even when it rains, and hey, we're all trying.